listening to Octagon 24/7's podcast, MMA Fancast. It's MMA for the fans, by the fans. We talk about only the important things you want to hear.
Hey, this is Mike Goldberg, the voice of Bellator MMA on Spike. Join us right now for MMA Fancast.
Hello and welcome to episode 44 of MMA Fancast. We are so glad to have you with us here again this week. We've got a ton of MMA to talk about today. There's a couple events this past weekend. We're going to dig into that. We're going to look ahead to what's coming up. And we're going to talk about Conor McGregor. We haven't had a chance to talk about him from an MMA standpoint in quite some time. We're going to talk about, you know, where is this going to go? Where is this thing headed? Is he heading into defending his belt? Like, what's going to happen there? We will discuss that at length, as well as we didn't hit on this last week at all, but Ronda Rousey is kind of being, it appears like she's being thrown under the bus by her coach to put her in there against Cyborg Santos. That's what he says he wants to do. I think that's a last payday for him, but we'll dig into that. We're going to dig into looking ahead at UFC 216, and we'll do all that in the next hour. So I am joined by my good friends, Jim Sahara Mooney and Andrew Dice Bailey. Let's dig into this stuff, guys. We had a couple good cards this past weekend, one in UFC, one in Bellator. Did you guys get a chance to watch both of them?
I got to watch the UFC Fight Night 117 after the fact. I did not watch it live, and I have not seen any of Bellator 183 yet.
I thought you watched. I was under the impression that you did watch one of the Bellator fights. No.
No, I didn't see any of the Bellator. No, I saw the entire main card of Fight Night, though.
Gotcha. Jim, Sahara, I know Sahara watched Fight Night.
I did indeed. At different times during the evening, there were noises you don't normally hear during a UFC event. But overall, the experience was worth it.
That was Sahara's wonderful personality coming out. You guys really get a treat with him week in and week out to hear this wonderful.
What were those noises, though, Ryan?
We had UFC Fight Night 117 in Japan. The UFC's return to Japan. What was the last Japan card the UFC had? That's a Johnny Stats question.
Long time.
I don't know that they've been there in the Zuffa.
I'm sorry, wrong time. It's been wrong time.
There's that like flourishing. It's amazing that you don't have like lots of friends. I don't know how that's possible.
UFC Fight Night Barnett Nelson, September 27th, 2015 was in Japan.
When was it again? Say it.
Yeah.
September 27th, 2015, headlined by Josh Barnett and Roy Nelson.
Okay, yeah. Well, yeah, so I'm a big fan of the Japanese MMA scene. I'm a big fan of the differences with the showmanship and that kind of thing. I don't think the UFC does it justice with, they don't do anything special when they're there. I would love to see some of that stuff that the Japanese love so much be implemented when they have a card in Japan. But we had OSP, Ovince Saint Preux, who was scheduled to have a big fight. And who was he scheduled for?
Shogun.
Who was really looking forward to fighting in Japan again. That was scrapped, and on short notice, Yushin Okami, who hasn't been in the UFC for quite some time, he took that fight and did not make the best of that opportunity.
He didn't make the best of it. I mean, he was fighting an uphill battle from the get-go. He'd been out of the UFC for several years, I believe 4, and he's a middleweight.
And a weight class, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Didn't he move up 2 weight classes for this one?
I think no, just one.
Well, I think it was just one. Unless I don't think they agreed on the catch weight.
Middleweight to light heavyweight, right?
Yeah, it's just one. But I mean, OSP's a big light heavyweight, and yeah, Okami was mismatched from the get-go. I appreciate him stepping in and saving the card, but I think all of us kind of knew he was overwhelmed stepping into this fight.
Yeah, definitely not. I mean, this is the kind of thing that his next fight, I mean, he has to get a next fight. One, you don't take this fight without being promised a second fight. But now, I mean, that's the fight that really matters for his UFC future is this next fight back down at middleweight, and he's got to make the best of that opportunity. Hey, I don't know if you guys remember this, but Yushin Okami was a mainstay in the top 6 or 7 in the UFC for a long time, and he's not. I don't have his age right in front of me, but I don't think he's like old. I mean,
he's 36.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's mid. I would think he's mid-30s, and that was about right. So I think he's got one chance to make a last push. He could probably, if he fights well in the next fight, he could get a top 10 opponent after that, and then I mean 3 or 4 fights. I think he could claw his way back in the top 5. That's really what he's looking for. One last run.
Yeah, that's what he's looking for. I don't think he's going to get it. I think for him, he's past his prime. He hasn't fought. He even struggled in World Series of Fighting. He dropped 2 fights there. And it was good to see him again. And I'm sure if he has a smart enough manager, he'll have another fight in the UFC. But this fight has just struck me as one where neither fighter has too much to gain. I mean, OSB is supposed to squash him, and Okami's supposed to get squashed.
Pretty much.
Yeah, I think his last fight at middleweight was Jacare.
Yeah, Jacare in 2013 September.
So I think if his body will handle it, it's where he needs to go. I think he's going to be outmatched in this division.
Very well could be. I mean, yeah. Typically, fighters who have peaked and haven't and are now 36 aren't going to come back and do anything. I mean, what are your thoughts on OSP now? Like, where do they go with him?
He's still looking for the Shogun fight, and I think in that area of the rankings is accurate. I don't think you can take too much from this fight. This was Okami's light heavyweight debut. The man has fought at welterweight before in World Series of Fighting. I mean,
essentially, this was back to the drawing board with OSP. It meant nothing.
Exactly.
It saved a card essentially from not having a main event anymore.
Yes, it saved the card and he got a paycheck, and that's basically all it did.
Yeah. There was no rankings effect. There's no, hey, I really saw something unique out of him. For anyone else in the UFC, we that did what he did, that would be something unique, but he does that all the time. The Von Flue choke.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's so beautiful.
The Von Preux choke.
Von Preux.
Yeah.
And then in the co-main event, Claudia Gadelha. Am I saying her name right?
We'll go with that.
Close enough.
Yeah.
No, is it wrong?
I think it's Gadelha.
We're just calling her CG on the show.
Jessica Andrade just withstood the first 3.5 minutes and then systematically dismantled Claudia.
It wasn't even close. She was severely outstruck by her opponent. And I think it was like 2-1 or maybe even 3-1 with significant strikes. It was not from the I'd say the second half of round 1. She just took a beating.
My memory tells me it was like 90 seconds left, a minute and a half left is what my memory's telling me, that when Jessica Andrade just kind of took the fight over.
Gadelia's gas tank went fast. I mean, in the second round, she just looked gone. Even when she fought Joanna, I'm not going to try to pronounce her last name. Whenever she fought Joanna twice, her gas tank held for 2 rounds. But I mean, this was sad.
Yeah, she didn't look. It's as if she came out like on fire, and it's as if she planned on ending the fight there and didn't really have another plan.
I agree. I think she saw what Joanna did to her. It's like, oh, I can easily finish her. I can put her out. And then she guessed wrong because Jessica Andrade can do one thing extremely well, and that's take a punch.
See, I don't think fighters really think like that, though, do they? I mean, do you go into a fight saying, "Oh, I'm going to end this in the first round"? Like that.
After what she did,
thinking like that,
you would assume so. But after what she did to Karolina
Kovacevic.
Yeah, I'm going to refer to every woman in this division by her first name. Karolina, she just demolished her in round 1, and I'm just curious to know if she thought the same thing. I was blown away at how underwhelming Claudia looked.
And you know what? That's a good way to put it. Like she had no spunk or gusto for this fight, and it's like she was already looking towards what she had put out on social media, that she was taking some time off for her family, and she just really wanted to get through the night.
She started her time off at like the 90-second mark left in the first round instead of waiting till the entire fight was over to take off.
Unofficially.
Yeah, and I feel like when fighters announce that before a fight is when you really got to question their focus.
Yeah, I mean – that brings into question someone else that isn't on our docket, but Matt Brown has stated that his last fight is going to be against Diego Sanchez, which is coming up on, what is it, 216 or I don't know.
Yeah, it's the next one.
So is it on this 216 card? No, I don't think it is. Anyway, that's his last fight, and he's retiring. But he's also said, now, I'm not closing the door on a comeback. Like, what? Do you not know what retiring is? Like, no, you don't retire then. You say, I'm going to take time off after this fight.
Yeah, this fight's taking place at UFC Norfolk on November 11th. And, yeah, I agree with you. I'm in complete agreement. It doesn't make any sense. It's almost like the retirement decision was just a publicity stunt. And I don't know if someone's in his ear about future possibilities. He's like, oh, man, might come back for that one. So there's no point in even saying it's a retirement fight anymore. Lost all intrinsic value from that.
Yeah. I wanted to mention this to you guys. You guys will find this interesting. I'm hearing from some sources that there could be a regional MMA card by the end of this year, by the end of 2017, right here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. What do you think about that?
I have heard that rumor as well.
Yeah, it's beginning to circulate. It's even reached me down here in the tri-state. That's good news.
Yeah, so we are waiting to see if we hear anything further, but from all indications are that, a card is being worked on and set up, and we'll see if that's true or not. I'm just letting you know what I'm hearing through the grapevine. Anyway, moving on. Any other Fight Night 117 things you guys wanted to talk about before we
the Saki bomb? The Saki bomb. Was it Go? I'm just gonna call him Saki. Gokin making his UFC debut, and cardio is a big factor for him. Couldn't make it around. Even addressed that in the post fight, but just taking some shots, eating head kicks, eating elbows. Looks like he's about to get finished. One left hook later, and the fight's over. It was one of the crazier finishes we've seen this year.
Yeah, it looked like he was about to gas right there, standing up against the cage. And it was like that puncher's chance that he threw out there, and that was all it took.
It was a bomb.
Sake bomb.
Yeah, that was certainly something worth, these are the kind of cards, let's just be honest, these are the kind of cards that you don't necessarily, make your schedule around, but you DVR them and you hear what happens, and then you like find it on your DVR and you fast forward through it in many instances. Or in Jim Sahara Mooney, in my case, you build your night around it and watch it and get some work done. Which is what we did. I mean, ultimately, we hung out, watched the fight, got some website stuff taken care of.
Indeed, we did.
And then you have Bellator 183, which was an actually pretty good card. As you start to get more involved with Bellator and what they're doing there, and they put on some interesting cards, some interesting fights. They have a lot of prospects that are up and coming, and I get excited for Bellator. Not every card, but I get excited for, like, this card I got excited for.
Well, we got some local connections, some local fighters here in Pittsburgh that are going to be not featured, but are going to be fighting on Bellator. So it's turning our heads towards that a little more. But our experience at Bellator NYC, that was a pretty good card. But, what we saw Saturday night was I don't think there was a letdown. Although the Paul Daly and Lorenz Larkin fight, I thought that would have. I was surprised it ended the way that it did. I just thought.
Wait, why would you call it a letdown?
Well,
it was a highlight reel knockout.
I mean, on Larkin's side,
well,
he doesn't want to be part of that highlight reel, and he hasn't done so well since going over to Bellator.
Well, he's now 0-2 with the loss to Lima, and now the loss to Paul Daly. Now, so yeah, let's talk about Larkin. Here's my first question. Where does Bellator go from here with Larkin? And then 2, is there a fighter who is less consistent than Lorenz Larkin?
CM Punk.
No, he's consistent. He's clearly consistent. He clearly shocks the world with how consistent he is.
I don't know. That was the fight that disappointed me. I expected more out of him. I expected some, for him to. I don't know. I don't even know what to say. It was a letdown for him to lose that way. Not necessarily to lose, but that was not a good evening for him.
So in Lorenz's last several fights, it breaks down like this: lose 3, win 2, lose 1, win 2, lose 2. It's very inconsistent, but it sort of reminds me of Jeremy Stevens, who would win 2, lose 3, win 3, lose 2, win, lose, win, lose 2, win.
You just confused my entire life. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Moral of the story is Jeremy Stevens and Lorenz Larkin are both very inconsistent fighters, but very exciting.
Yeah.
It puts him in like a middle-of-the-road fighter who at times can show flashes of brilliance, like he can move up and do some damage in his weight class. But then he's got those fights like the last 2 that we've seen, this knockout and then the decision loss to Lima, where he lacks any sparkle at all. So what do you do with that? It's similar to what we saw at UFC Pittsburgh with Uriah Hall. The guy's got tremendous talent. We want to see that every night. Lorenz Larkin, he's got those flashes, but there's no consistency with it.
Yeah. Interesting.
I never forget, though. I always liked Lorenz. He had the knockout. He beat Robbie Lawler, though, back in Strikeforce at middleweight. So it'd be interesting if he ever moved up again.
Well, and that's the interesting thing I think he's capable of beating a lot of guys.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think he's just as capable of losing to a lot of guys. And that's the inconsistency. He'll beat a world beater and then he'll lose to a guy you've never heard of before or after that fight.
Yeah, so he's got a TKO victory against Magny, split win against Masvidal. So those are two guys, especially Masvidal. That's, a nice little notch in his belt right there.
Very nice.
Yeah.
And then he turns around and does this 2-fight losing streak. Listen, I think he is the most talented fighter in the division in Bellator. And I thought he was going to come in and beat Lima, and he should have, and he didn't. Then I thought he was going to beat Daly, and he came in and he didn't. And it's bizarre that, how's Daly going to beat somebody?
Apparently not KOing them.
That's how he's going to beat you. And to go in and to try to want to stand with him and just throw punches with him, if there's only one way he's going to beat you, I know you're good on the feet too, but why not negate that risk? I don't know.
Do what Roy McDonald did and choke him out.
Yeah.
That's good advice.
That's what I'm here for. Yeah, don't stay on the feet. Just choke him out. Come on. This is easy.
We had Benson Henderson losing a split decision in the main event. And what did you agree with that decision? Jim?
Me or
yeah,
I did. Yep.
Yeah, I agree. I agreed with it too.
Yeah, he's another one that has disappointed me in the past few fights. I didn't see any that sparkle out of him that I'm used to seeing.
Yeah, I think he's a fighter that kind of peaked early and things have caught up to him, and I just don't see him as the same guy I did, 5 years ago in the UFC.
All right.
Which is probably why the UFC decided to, let him go, that they felt that he didn't have the same thing to offer that he once did.
Peaked early is the best way to put it because he's only 33. I mean,
yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
He should be. I mean, most fighters, this is 33 is like they're going to be at their peak then because they have the best balance of still having some youth and having a lot of experience and all that stuff. And I just feel like he peaked earlier and he's on the downside. I mean, this is a guy that at one point he was 21-3 in the UFC. Since then, he's gone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 3-5.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And, losing 5 fights when – I mean, it's not like he's been fighting at the top of this game for a long time.
Yeah, he put together a win streak from 2011 to 2013. Here's the murderer's row he went through. Jim Miller, Clay Guida, Frankie Edgar consecutively, Nate Diaz, Gilbert Melendez.
Yeah, that's a murderer's row.
Oh, man.
So, yeah, I it's just, disappointing that he has peaked so early and now he's, on a 2-fight skid against Chandler and Patricky Pitbull. And just what do you do now? What do you do with them? He's the kind of guy that, I mean, Bellator's in a position where you got to kind of keep him around.
Well, yeah, I think he's still a name that's going to draw some people. I think what he'll do is maybe bring in more of the casual fan because anybody that's followed his career, you will see that it appears like he's on the backside, and and there's not going to be much interest there. But I think Bellator is just going to try and capitalize on his name at this point, and maybe hopefully find matchups that that he can pull through, and then start moving up on a card. I don't think at this point he can be the main or a co-main.
Yeah, and the heavyweight debut was also on this card of Roy Nelson. He faced Javy Ayala, and that was an interesting first round, and then from there it was kind of a lot less interesting.
It ended up being one fat guy on top of another towards the end.
It sounds like Roy Nelson and Derek Lewis.
Yeah,
Derek Lewis is a name though. That's the thing.
Yeah.
This reminded me of the fights years ago where it was like you would go to a convention center and it was tough man competition. That's what this looked like between the two. And, I'm not, trying to talk or put Big Country in a negative light, but it just seemed like a bomb fest, and both guys were trying to, take the other one out with one punch. And
it totally did give you the feeling of like
a bar fight.
Two guys that weren't physical specimens, that weren't highly trained, even though that's not the case. But particularly Roy Nelson, I don't know about the other gentleman, but and what his background is in. But this did give the appearance of like two guys just going out there in a tough man competition.
Mm-hmm.
Javy Ayala, I don't know much about him, but
I always like watching Big Country fight. He was cordial enough to give us an interview at Bellator NYC, so we're thankful for that.
He's good in our book.
Yeah.
How old is he?
He's getting up there.
I think he's 41, guys.
I think you're right.
I think he's
41.
Yeah.
Turned 41 in June.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you're going to be an old fighter, right? What do you lose when you're this big Burger King guy? I mean, those guys typically don't lose power right away. They lose a lot of speed, and you know what I mean? So he never really had that speed. He wasn't relying on speed to win fights. He still knows a lot of jiu-jitsu and is a very good heavyweight on the ground. I think he has a chance to fight a couple more years, especially moving over to Bellator with there's no heavyweight champion.
Yeah, the heavyweight division over there is wide open for a number of reasons. Mainly because they have no belt, which I still think is odd. No belt for the heavyweights.
Well, there is no current champion. But I think they have something. I think they're going to have a tournament, like a tournament at some point, but
like a Grand Prix or something.
Yeah, something like that. I think they're trying to put it together. They're trying to get the right people signed to do it. Yep. I mean, if you put Mitrione and Fedor and Roy Nelson, I don't know. I mean, they're all ex-UFC guys, but I mean, that's how you expose more talent. Speaking of more talent,
King Mo,
he's not fighting at heavyweight ever again. He does not belong there. He belongs to 205. He's a small 205er. He only fought at heavyweight because Rampage wouldn't stop eating.
Well, there's another name for heavyweight.
Well, yeah, Rampage. There's four right there.
Mm-hmm.
They're all ex. See, I would like to see like an 8-man tournament where you have like 4 ex-UFC guys and 4 new talent, young talent, and let those guys get some experience and be featured and built up and potentially have some big upsets against the UFC champion or almost champion or contender, I don't know. I think that'd be smart. Aaron Pico. Let's talk about him. Aaron Pico, for those of you that don't know, is a long time, very accomplished wrestler. He's also a very accomplished boxer, a very, very big prospect for Bellator. And he made his debut back at Bellator 180, which was NYC, that same card, and lost his MMA debut quickly via
24 seconds.
Yeah. And so this was his chance to kind of redeem that loss, and he was able to do that. However, he showed some holes in his game, but he also showed why he is, he showed some signs of why he is so such a good prospect. I think he could be he just turned 21 years old. I think he could be, if done well, he could be a big name. But they got to do it. They got to do it right. They can't throw him to the wolves.
Well, I think the smart move for him was going to 145. He said himself that that's his natural weight. So, with that going to 145, he's gonna bring some serious power into that division, and that's what he put on for display Saturday night. It was a crushing left hook that took out Justin Linn.
So does Aaron Pico have a chance to be a top of the division guy in all of MMA?
It's going to take a few years. I say give him 3 to 5 years, and maybe he can get there. Even though he won in convincing fashion, that was a highlight reel knockout. He's still his ground and pound was not that good. He didn't take advantage of when he had top position. I didn't think he took commanding position when he was given that by Justin Linn. And on the feet, he definitely showed his boxing skills. He talked about that after the fight, but
he's not very defensive.
He's for as much as Bellator is getting behind this guy and touting him as the next great one, he's raw. I'll say that. He's raw. There's some skills there, but
he's also 21 years old. When's the last time you saw a 21-year-old that you saw go in there and look like, a seasoned veteran?
James Gadleha.
I was just going to say
division.
Uh-huh.
Well, maybe those two need to go at it then.
Not yet. You got to protect them. You got to protect both prospects.
See, I think you protect James Gadleha. How does he pronounce that?
Gadleha.
Well, I think we say either Gallagher or Gallagher, but he would say Gadleha.
Yeah, that's it's weird. It's not normal.
Just call him James.
Yeah. So
KG.
With him and AJ McKee, and now, they got some 145ers there that are going to make that division interesting. They're all young and super talented.
It's going to be tough for them to spread that out so that they don't start. I don't know. I think the matchups, could position fighters for, maybe trilogy fights, spanning over, a couple fighters, over the next 3 to 4 years. But it's definitely a young division.
Well, I think if they can keep their eyes open for the top 45ers coming up, and they can snag them before the UFC gets to them, that division could be a very interesting division.
Yes, they just have to keep them there too.
Yeah. And then you got Dominic Mazzata at 135. Go Dom, Pittsburgh. Yinzer Scrap Pack. Hashtag Yinzer Scrap Pack.
Hey, what was that? Hey, how did you do that?
Yeah, you saw.
Something like hashtag. I don't know what that was.
You're a dork. Dude, let me ask you this, Jim. What's that thing connecting your two headphone sides? What is that?
Intelligence.
No, I was talking. Leave Andrew out of this. I was talking about you. Anyway, moving on. We hinted at this. We got to talk some Conor McGregor. This is an MMA podcast, and we haven't talked Conor McGregor MMA in like a long time.
I think like 2 weeks.
No, we have not talked Conor McGregor MMA. We talked Conor McGregor boxing, Conor McGregor. Like, we haven't really dove into Conor McGregor.
Yeah, I missed the podcast that immediately followed the May Mac fight. I never even got to publicly comment on that. I think that might have been the last time that there was any McGregor talk on MMA Fancast.
Well, and here's the thing. I didn't want to bring it up, but since we're talking about it, Mayweather, McGregor, we all took predictions for that boxing match, did we not? Mm-hmm. Andrew, are you trying to hide from us? Like, no. You are nowhere to be seen.
I'm writing.
Buried behind your microphone, and you can't even see you at all.
I'm taking notes over here, guys. I'm studious.
Okay. You're studious. Yeah. Okay. So you guys both made a prediction on the McGregor Mayweather boxing match.
I got no problems with the prediction that I made.
What? It was completely inaccurate?
It was just my opinion on how I felt. So, I'm not going to go back on that. If I had to analyze the fight again, I think if there were to be a rematch, I think it would be a different approach by both fighters. We'll never see it again, but I still stand by how I felt. I think Conor had an opportunity to win the fight. He did what we thought.
He never had an opportunity to win the fight.
Sure he did. You can't take anything away from him what he did.
What point in the fight were you saying, okay, he has a chance to win this now?
He took the first 3 rounds.
Well, I mean, I agree. He took the first 3 rounds, but I also think Mayweather wasn't really – he was kind of waiting it out.
I disagree.
The body shot in the 8th round when Floyd was noticeably hurt had me a little like, oh, whoa, there was something there. And even George Foreman came out and spoke on it. It was like, it just seemed like a complete protection job after that shot. But I mean, that shot, I haven't seen Floyd hurt by many body shots, and that was one of them that did.
Yeah, a couple odd things that I saw.
He was gassed.
Oh yeah, and that was something that that most people talked about, is that there's going to be the fatigue factor if it goes past the 25 minutes. A lot of people were saying it was going to be a Mayweather knockout. Conor was saying inside of 4 rounds, and so-called experts were saying it was going to be Mayweather inside of 4 rounds, and that he was just going to toy with them. I thought too that fatigue was going to be a factor. I'm not taking anything away from Mayweather, and he fought. Hindsight, you can see that he waited until he had his opportunity. However, you can't discount what McGregor did.
I don't think anyone's discounting it. It's just, a tall task to have an MMA fighter try to box someone who's the greatest of all time.
Absolutely. Agreed.
I wouldn't call him the greatest of all time, but
well, I mean, at that weight class, and I mean, he's one of the greatest. He's 50-0. I mean, if he's not the greatest of all time, he's arguably the greatest of all time.
So one of the things that that I did come away with was an appreciation for Mayweather and what he's done over his career, and how he handles himself after the fight, just like McGregor does. Once the fight is over, it's done.
Well, I mean,
and he's got respect
if you
for
were
his
in
opponent.
a fight and you were going to get $400 million and it was over, you'd be like, yeah, I got $400 million
Okay.
now.
Well, I mean, you're
can
talking
pay
about
my taxes.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Paying the tax man. But I just mean that he was passing on compliments to McGregor and acknowledged the things that he did in the fight. McGregor did the same thing. He had nothing but praise for Mayweather, and that he had a plan and he stuck to it, and that's ultimately what was the difference maker. When it came time to call the fight, Mayweather's plan was far and away better than anything that McGregor was going to do that night.
Okay, so let's forget about the past. Let's talk about the future. What is next for Conor McGregor? What do you guys think is going to actually happen? We know there's rumors of Diaz trilogy. There's rumors that he doesn't fight again. He boxes now. Like, what do you think it will actually happen? Let's make our predictions. What is next for Conor McGregor?
Nate Diaz trilogy. There's no question about it. I have no hesitation. I just don't see – it's the money fight to make. You're going to make a truckload of money off of this fight. Dana White came out today and spoke against it happening in December. And when Dana White usually comes out and says stuff like that, I tend to think it's going to happen. So whether it happens that date or later, I think the Nate Diaz trilogy fight for the lightweight championship is next.
Okay.
I agree.
You think the same thing, huh?
I agree. As soon as I heard the rumors of a trilogy fight, and then when I saw Dana White make an official statement or a comment when asked about it, and he poo-pooed it and said it's not going to happen, that right there told me it's going to happen.
All right.
How many times have we heard him say things, and
so you're
not going to be females fighting in the UFC? Say again?
Wait. There's a difference in him saying there's not going to be females fighting in the UFC and this. He
said Mac would never happen.
He truly believed that when he said it, though. You're saying that he's lying now. That's a difference.
I'm not going to say he's lying, because maybe at that time when he made that comment about the trilogy not happening, at least this year,
he said not true. This is just in capital letters. He said just not true.
Just promoter being a promoter.
Yeah. I just don't see what he would have to gain by commenting on Twitter at all.
Because it's Dana White.
Well,
so here's I'm going with
argument itself. It's Dana White.
Yeah, with what Andrew said, this would be the money fight for the UFC. Who else? If you put him up against the Eagle,
here's the only thing that makes sense is the Russia fight with Nurmagomedov.
But Nurmagomedov can't make weight. And UFC...
if he doesn't make weight, then he doesn't get a chance at the belt. But they still fight in Russia. Like, that's a big deal if they can get a fight in Russia.
I just don't think the UFC is going to take the chance with their golden goose like this.
No, yeah, it's especially the end of the year. They're not going to want to go into the new year, with a flat card, having somebody pull out against Conor. Especially for a title fight or possibly unification. Who knows? But yeah, I don't think Khabib is his next opponent.
Khabib.
That's what I said.
I think McGregor's going to make some kind of announcement on September this weekend. I think when he has that exclusive interview with Dan Hardy.
Yeah. Who knows? Dan Hardy, is he trying to still fight again or no?
I don't believe so.
Okay, so he's done.
Yep.
that was a call out of Mickey Gall's. It was the Dan Hardy fight. Anyway, okay, so let's talk about Edmund.
Yes, let's talk about Edmund Tarverdian, please.
Okay. Ronda Rousey is having a lot of trouble, right? She's fought a couple times, 2 times recently, and been devastatingly knocked out. So
You think?
So put yourself in.
Is that your official opinion on?
There goes that thrilling personality again. Oh, it just melts my heart how good that is, Jim. Dude, come on, come with that again. Do it again. It was good. Let's see how good it can be this time. Anyway, Edmund. So you're Ronda Rousey's manager. She's just gotten completely decimated by strikes on the feet twice in a row. Has been an emotional wreck because of it. Her identity has been tied to her fighting. She has flirted with the idea of going WWE, all this stuff. It's clear that MMA might not be in the future for Ronda Rousey. So he comes out, Edmund, how do you say his last name?
Tarverdian.
There it is again. There it is. That was good. We got
Tarverdian.
Going to so he says he wants her next fight, which there might not be a next fight, but he wants that to be against Cyborg because Cyborg is really slow and she can't possibly keep up with Rousey. Is there anything more ridiculous than that, guys?
You have to stop asking me to comment on things so stupid. First, it was something about Jim, and now this is I can't do this. This is unfathomable. Sorry, Jim.
It's all right.
Sorry, not sorry, you mean?
Maybe Happa could take on Cyborg. I think we would have the same results because neither one of those two can strike Travis or his husband, Mr. Rousey.
What?
Did you just call Ronda Rousey a guy?
Yeah, I think you just called Ronda Rousey a dude.
Hey, let's be honest. She may not be able to strike, but she's still a good-looking woman. Come on, Jim.
I completely disagree with you on that one.
Oh, man. But no, this statement is idiotic, and I highly doubt the fight will ever happen. If it did, Ronda has a good agency team behind him since her agency team owns UFC. She's a WME big client. There's no way this happens. I just don't see why it would, just for the sake of a spectacle. This sounds like a Bellator main event, just going with the freak show factor.
Yeah, Cyborg made a comment recently when there was talk about Rousey, or not Rousey fighting her, but coming from her camp. And Cyborg said that she'd be willing to. And, going back to what we were talking about earlier, money fights, this would be a huge, huge event if it ever happened. And that was Cyborg saying she would take on Rousey in WWE. And if Dana would let that happen, that would be a huge event.
Yeah, that's really the only way I think that takes place. I think if you're an athletic commission, it might be to the point where you would be like, yeah, I don't think we can sanction this.
Yeah, it just doesn't make any sense. Like, it's not her facing a high-level grappler like herself. It's the most dominant striker in women's MMA.
Mm-hmm.
So it's stupid. I'm done on this one.
Speaking of women's MMA, we had a bout set for the new flyweight division. and that was Jessica Ai and Paige Van Zandt. Unfortunately, Paige Van Zandt has been has had to drop out of that fight due to some undisclosed injury, and now the UFC is looking for a replacement for Jessica Ai to fight. Now, just as a reminder, Jessica Ai was a top 125-pound fighter. I mean, she was, I think, first ranked or second ranked 125-pound fighter. Came to the UFC. They didn't have a 125-pound division. Fought at 135. Struggled mightily. She was not able to make the 115 division. So now with this new division, Jessica Ai looks to be a potentially a top contender, or we don't know. I mean, she's dropping down to her more comfortable weight, so this is a big deal. I think Jessica Ai has a chance to be in the top 5 in this division, and so we'll see what I'm assuming they're going to grab someone from Invicta to put on this card.
That's where I was going to go. That they're going to need to pull somebody from somewhere to have this fight happen, and I think that that's actually how they're going to start to build the 125 is pulling fighters from Invicta.
Yeah. Anything on your end there, Andrew Dice Bailey?
Oh, there he is. There he is. He just peeked out from the side.
Yes, I do actually.
Are you gonna get out from behind your mic?
I'm sorry, I was getting some numbers for you. I'm about to hit you with some knowledge. Get ready.
It's like a crutch. You remind me of the guy on Home Improvement that you can't see the bottom half of his face.
I peek over.
Yeah, he peeks over the fence, but you never see from here down. He's a. Hey.
All right, so listen to this. Including UFC 216, there have been 9 pay-per-views this year dating back to UFC 208. 6 of those have lost a fight off of the main card this year. Oh, also, I have a piece coming for Octagon 24/7 later this week talking about this and all the fights that lost fighters. But this is a trend that's happening in the UFC and one that needs to be rectified. And it's terrible for that. It sucks because that was going to be the inaugural fight for that division. And I was really looking forward to see if Paige Van Zandt could bounce back. But I agree. Jessica Ai is dangerous at 125. And I'm really interested to see all the matches that division can create with the dominant 135ers and the 115ers meeting in the middle there. That could set up some really good fights.
Yeah. Agreed. Looking ahead, October 7th, we have a UFC 216. That card that we're talking about, we're assuming Jessica Ai will have an opponent for that card, which would, re-strengthen that card. It's a good card. I mean, I think you were talking, Andrew, not earlier on this podcast, but on a different podcast about how horrible of a card 216 was. I disagree. I know that they've added Demetrius Johnson-Rayborg since then.
Yeah.
However, I think there are good fights even on the Fight Pass portion of the card. That Walt Harris, Mark Godbeer, that's a quality fight.
I'm a Mark Godbeer guy. I don't know much about Walt Harris at all.
Thales Leites versus Brad Tavares. That's a good fight.
Yeah, Maraga's on the prelims.
Yep.
On the UFC Fight Pass. They got decent fights.
There's Lando Venata versus Bobby Green.
Venata's my boy.
I love him. You got Will Brooks and Nick Lentz. Will Brooks, he hasn't got off to the UFC start that you would like to see. However, he's got a ton of talent. He's probably going to settle in now and find his spot in that division. I think he's good. Nick Lentz is a scrappy guy that doesn't seem to go away, and that he's got a heck of a beard if he still has his beard. I like the card. Derek Lewis and Fabricio Verdum is an interesting fight. I think Verdum needs to just take it to the ground. But Verdum, he's going to stand there and try to bang with him, so that's exciting. Ray Borg
is probably going to fight Derek Lewis coaches too.
Yes, he'll
at least kick them. Yeah.
Yes. You got Kevin Lee, Tony Ferguson headlining, which is an interim title fight. Ray Borg, to me, I love this card.
Yeah, it's okay. The addition of Mighty Mouse and Ray Borg, I like. If it didn't have that fight on the main card, I don't think it should have been a pay-per-view. And I still don't think from a common fan perspective this is going to do more than 200,000 buys.
I don't know. There's some heavy names on here that I don't think that you could put this card on a fight night. It's got to be a pay-per-view. Maybe it's not the star-studded power that we're used to seeing on pay-per-views, but I think this is going to be like we saw for 206. I think this is going to be the little fight card that could.
We'll see, but 206 did abysmal numbers as well. So
but they put that out again because
with numbers.
They're fabulous.
I'm not concerned with numbers from a fight fan's perspective. Like, they have to worry about the numbers, right? I'm concerned about, is this a fight card that I'm excited about and want to see? And it is. The answer is yes. And am I okay with it being a pay-per-view? 100%. Was I okay with it being a pay-per-view before Demetrius Johnson was put on it? 100%.
Oh, see, I find more fighters on here I'm interested in watching than fights. I'm afraid the Verdum Derek Lewis fight's going to be as Jim so eloquently put it, just two fat guys laying on each other eventually. The Mighty Mouse fight, I think, is going to be a squash.
Wait. Verdum is not fat.
He's got a little bit. He done lapped over that belt.
He's not.
There's a hillbilly term.
He's over 40.
He got Dunlap's disease. His belly done lapped over his belt.
I'm over 40. Sahara's like 4 decades over 40.
Yeah, so you can imagine what that belt looks like.
Wow. that poor belt.
I'm excited for Will Brooks to fight somebody that actually makes weight. The Oliveira fight was a joke. I'm really excited to watch Venata. And on the main card, yes, I'm afraid that fight would be that Mighty Mouse is going to squash Borg. Ferguson Lee's interesting. I could see that fight going several different ways. So I'm kind of torn on that one. And is it Darush and Evan Dunham?
Yeah.
Beneil Darush, that fight could be really good. It's funny. That fight's probably
I think it's Dariush.
Well, that fight's probably my second most look forward to on the main card behind Ferguson and Lee.
Really?
Yeah. I don't think the two middle ones are going to hold up at all. So is it only a 4-fight main?
No. Well, I think
yes.
It's scheduled now for.
Okay, because
I think the I fight will probably be up on the main.
Hey, bump up.
They're not going to have a pay-per-view that's only 4 fights.
Yeah, bump up Lando Veneta. There's your entertaining first fight.
No, they want that on F. They want that more people seeing it.
Yeah, not excited though.
You are such a turd.
Not excited.
When was the last card you got excited for? Because I think it takes Conor McGregor for you to get excited.
John Jones DC2.
Okay. What else before that?
It's probably his cow chip bingo card.
It was going to be 213 until Amanda Nunes couldn't make weight. Let me think. 212 was the Aldo Holloway card. Let me pull up those real quick.
He's just a Debbie Downer tonight.
Do you like MMA or do you just like a couple guys?
Have you heard of it?
Yeah, I love MMA. I just like a good card, and some of these aren't put together very well.
Well, and they haven't been helped by them falling apart.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's a big. It's just a sentence. A 209 I was really excited for, and then it lost Khabib and Tony Ferguson.
Habib,
and we got that stinker of a main event with Woodley and Wonder Boy. But no, this year overall for some main events hadn't been that good. 213, I like watching Robert Whittaker fight.
You've been with us since July, and I've never heard you say, like, oh, I'm excited for this card. Let me ask you this. Were you excited for the UFC Pittsburgh Fight Night card?
I was excited. I was excited for the Mike Perry fight a lot until the opponent pulled out, and I knew he was going to squash the guy. And I was excited to watch Rockhold fight, but not for the actual fight until the occasional nerves and jitters beforehand. But it ultimately felt like Rockhold was just going to beat him down.
So after the fight, you call exactly what's going to happen.
No, that's what I feel like going in. I mean, all of us thought Rockhold was going to smash Branch.
I don't think he smashed him.
Well,
I mean, Branch was beating him on the feet
until he gassed.
Well, he was beating him on the feet. He threw some combinations at Rockhold wasn't handling very well.
Yeah, I'll give you that. I mean, a lot to do with ring rust and all that. All it factors in. He was getting the best of him, and then he ran out of gas. Yeah. The fight that way, talking about UFC Pittsburgh though, fight that really did impress me that I was going into with low expectations was Gregor Gillespie, Jason Gonzalez.
Yeah, that was a ball.
I thought that fight was going to be a squash. I was completely wrong. That was awesome.
Yeah, I thought it was a great it's one of those cards that you were like, oh, there's nothing great on this card, and then the fighters just pull through, and it was I thought it was a very fun night of fights.
It wasn't. It was the first 4 fights were knockouts. I know the first 3. I can't remember that fourth one.
The fourth one wasn't. We had back-to-back decisions, and then we went 5 in a row finishes to end the night.
Yeah, I really thought it was a very enjoyable card.
Yeah, Kamaru Usman, the Uriah Hall starching of Jocko. No, it was good. There were a lot of good ones on there. That was one that I went into a little slept on, and 8 finishes and 10 fights is hard to argue.
Yeah, and that Uriah Hall fight put him back in the top 10.
Top 10?
Yeah.
That's crazy to me.
He's number 10 now.
Oh, man.
I'm so glad that MMA writers are the ones that do the rankings and not the UFC.
Octagon 24/7.
Wow.
Uriah Hall is 10th? Oh, man.
We would tell them we're coming out with new rankings soon and not actually do it, though.
See, talent-wise, I think he belongs in the top 10. But you can't go just based on talent. It's not the top 10 most talented fighters. It's the top 10, results oriented.
They're putting him up to get demolished though with the guys in front of him in that division. Like he can only fight back if he wants to win.
Okay, there's something we don't get into this a lot, but I know we disagree on this, and I think it'll make for interesting podcasting. Well, I don't know that we disagree on it, but I suspect we might. So, over the course of this past weekend, there were many teams in the NFL that somehow, some way, showed a protest to the national anthem, and so I'd love to hear some of your guys' thoughts on that, and so. Feel free to chime in with your thoughts.
Well, I am not going to go on a political rant, or I'm not going to go crazy or anything, but the means of protest are the ones that are most scrutinized. And I believe that every American has the right to protest in any way, any reasonable. I mean, I don't want to protest by murdering people or doing anything abhorrent like that. But I think they have the right to protest. I believe that.
No, I don't disagree. I think people have the right to protest. I also think we have the right to say that just because someone has the right to do something doesn't mean it's always the right thing to do.
Yes, I see that.
We also have the right to criticize a decision to protest the the national anthem and the flag when it's really has nothing to do with that. Those are two totally different things. And when I'm at my job, I'm being paid to do my job, not to like protest.
Is their job? They didn't protest the game. They just protest the national anthem.
They're on TV because of their job. They're using that as a platform that I don't feel that they should be doing.
Do you feel like they were enabled by the president's comments?
No, I feel like they were enabled by their commissioner.
Well, I feel like the president calling players what he did is
totally irrelevant.
I don't think it's not a good, you don't do that. You don't you don't swear at players and say that. It's just, I don't want to get into it. Not on the MMA podcast. I'm not getting into it.
Yeah. My take on this is that while Trump made comments, the president made comments that some would find inflammatory, what happened this past weekend had nothing to do with him and his comments. It's trying to point fingers somewhere other than back at the product, and that is the NFL. And the NFL is if they got intelligent people within that organization, they're going to find some way to stop this, because it's definitely going to hurt them. I think with the Steelers, since that was my hometown team, I understand what Tomlin was trying to do, what his intent was. He wanted to not put the players in, I guess you could say, in harm's way, and keep them from having to make a public statement that maybe some teammates might disagree with, and it could cause some locker room division publicly within the Pittsburgh community. It might cause some problems, and he was trying to shield them from that. So I totally understand that. However, when he pulled the team back and said, we're not going out for this reason, I knew it wasn't going to sit well at all. There's just no way most fans would buy that. And they would see it, regardless of what he said, they would see it as boycotting the national anthem. Then you had the incident where Alejandro Villanueva came out and stood outside of the tunnel for the national anthem. And, he wasn't really harping on Villanueva, but he did say he was disappointed. He was hoping for 100%. That might have been, to some, a public scolding, but there were players that said,
well, I mean,
that Big Al gets a pass because of his service.
Well, so here's the thing that bothers me the most. When Donald Trump said what he said, he's reacting to the perception of many that, it's disrespectful to do that during the national anthem and to the flag. It's disrespectful to a lot of things, and that's not the time and place to do it. So that was what he said. And okay, so could he have said it better? Absolutely. That's Donald Trump, whatever. But here's what I find to be funny. Here's Roger Goodell's response to it. The NFL and our players are at our best when we help create a sense of unity in our country and our culture. There is no better actually, this is not the quote I wanted. Where's the actual quote when he says, man, I thought I pulled it.
I know where you're going with that, Ryan. I'll give you a minute or so to try and find it. But his statement is not reflective of what's actually happening in the league, with teams hiding out in the locker room till the anthem is over. You got some owners who are joining hands with their players. There's players who are taking a knee during the anthem, others who are standing, and it's publicly it's putting a black eye on the NFL. Numbers wise, ratings are down. Ratings are down big time, and I think over the past 2 years, percentage wise, I think they're down like 16 to 20%, something like that. Financially, they've lost over $200 million to the NFL. $200 million is a lot of money. I don't know if that's how far that goes into their pocketbooks, just because it's so heavily backed financially with sponsors, and it's an organization that's got deep pocketbooks. But I think this is something that happened yesterday that is going to be long term, and I think in the next few weeks it's really going to be a telltale sign for the NFL and what is going to happen to them, and if fans are going to stay away. Similar to hockey and baseball, when there was a strike, fans stayed away and eventually came back. But I think this is going to hurt the NFL, and they're going to really find out over the next, say, 3-4 weeks to see, what they've done to their fans.
Okay, here's the quote I actually wanted to pull up. This is Roger Goodell saying, "Divisive comments like these demonstrate an unfortunate lack of respect for the NFL, our great game, and all of our players, and a failure to understand the overwhelming force for good our clubs and players represent in our communities." So I took that comment and I changed a word here and there to reflect a lot of the other side of this arguments, which he's talking about respecting the NFL and that the president needs to show a respect for the NFL. So I changed a couple words, and it would be something like this. Divisive actions like these demonstrate an unfortunate lack of respect for the country, for the flag, our great country, and all of our veterans, and a failure to understand the overwhelming force for good our first responders and police represent in our communities. That's, to me, that position to me seems like the arguable position to have, far more than a lack of respect for the NFL. So to me, that's just Trump's position and a lot of the opposition's position on why they're upset because people are kneeling and the whole Kaepernick thing, and with the national anthem, and it's just being accepted as like, I think that's the most disrespectful thing someone can do to our country. This is my personal feelings, that there are times to protest and there are times not to. And if you don't love our country, like if you love our country and love the opportunity that this country provides to so many people, there's no other country like ours. Are we perfect? No, but no country is. Do we do things wrong? Yes. But we have a democracy here, and if you don't want to be a part of that, then that's your choice. But you still have to love our country, and these actions are not loving towards our country. They're continuing to cause. That's the divisive thing. The divisive thing is being disrespectful towards your fellow Americans, toward the veterans that have given you the right to do that. Now, they have the right to do that. But just because you have the right to do something doesn't mean it's right to do it. There's a difference there. And that's just my little rant. Sorry.
All things are available. Not all things are permissible.
I just don't think it's the right thing to do. That's all.
I forget exactly what it was, Ryan. You and I were talking about something last weekend. So it would have been a week ago yesterday. And I think I made mention that I wasn't watching the Steelers. This was before this even happened yesterday. And I said, it's just different things that have happened over the past few years have turned me off to the NFL. But, I was going to occasionally peek in and see what was going on. But, it's become a joke. And it's like they are saying, we have the right and we're going to shove it down your face. And the media is going to take that because they want the ratings, and they're going to push that. They're going to push that story for as long as they can. But the problem is they're going to be driving fans away, and they need to look at the big picture when it comes to this stuff. For them, the big picture is money.
Well, and here's the thing. I mean, there's obvious different opinions on all of this stuff, and the problem that we have here in our country now is that we're afraid to talk about it anymore because we're afraid to get attacked or to be attacked or to attack other people, or like, why are we not at a point where we can have conversations anymore? I mean, it's just not the way. Someone's not evil because they think differently than you. Someone's not bad because they think differently of you than you. And we should be able to talk about those things in civil ways and make progress. That's how progress is made, when you have an understanding of someone else's position. You don't have to agree with it, but you have to have an understanding of it. And I think we've lost that, and we need to get that back to come together as a country. Anyway, anything else you guys want to add?
Yeah, just one thing, and that is, Andrew, have you ever seen the movie Dodgeball?
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember the team that the two teams that were in the finals, and they what I would call the bad guys, they had a female on the team.
Mm-hmm.
And if you recall what she looked like, then put that on one side of your PC, on your monitor, your screen, and then pull up a picture of Rousey when she comes in and she's got the mouthpiece in and her hair is up in the Princess Leia buns on the side, and she looks just like the girl from I think her name is it Missy Riley or something like that, but she looks just like the girl, the dodgeball player, not the good looking one.
I'm pretty sure that none of us need to be judging other people's looks. I'm pretty sure of that.
Jim, you're old and senile. Good night.
All right,
I'm a good-looking guy. I know it. I'm not afraid to say it. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm muting both of you. So thank you all for joining us. It was a pleasure being here with you. On behalf of the entire cast at Octagon247.com and MMA Fancast, this is Ryan Middleton signing off, saying thank you. God bless.